Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the show, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, Chocolate Saying, Refracted Curvature, Eli, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Not really, I got an eyelash in my eye right in the middle of that intro.
The horizon is not Earth's
better out this out quick, I'm going to start twitching badly. Other than that, great day, yeah, really good start. Good to have you all in Discord.
You got Tourette's all of a sudden? What's going on?
I was twitching away. I was like, I can control this. I can keep this. I can hold it till the end of the intro. I've got it out now. It's okay.
Hi, Erwin.
What's going on?
Hey, Erwin. Good to have you. Yeah, eyelash-related problems. Nothing serious.
Oh, okay.
Good show today, Erwin. Managed to tune in today.
Yeah, welcome back.
I have been tuning in. I just haven't been saying hello. So believe it or not, I have been tuning into your show. I just haven't been in the live chat. So if I've been out on my...
No, I saw you. I saw you pop up. I take note of that. Oh, but I meant like in relation to yesterday. Welcome back.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was my daughter's birthday. So happy birthday, Eleanor, for yesterday.
Hope it was a fun day.
Yeah, kids' parties and seeing family is always nice. No complaints, nice and relaxed. It's essentially a day off for me, so I'm not complaining. Not that I don't like what I do. I love what I do. Really happy to be here. Joyful as ever. Refreshed as opposed to not happy to be here, which I am. Should we do a bit of housekeeping?
Let's do it.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth? At any altitude, we're talking about Earth curve as the horizon.
Well, if the horizon bends, right, at 200,000 miles up, it still doesn't mean it's Earth curve now, because it's not Earth curve from 1 foot, right?
The horizon in the heliocentric model is supposed to be Earth curve at any distance, always. It's the only reason things disappear bottom up according to their mathematics. Geometric limitation called Earth curve. That's their horizon. Your question was about bending, and I've kind of subverted it, so maybe I'm missing something, John.
Well, the horizon bending is not synonymous with Earth curve, but they've made it synonymous.
Why isn't it synonymous? I'm still not following.
Well, it could just be how your eye sees, you know, the ground below you.
What you're saying is the heliocentric model has made the horizon into people's pre-assumption that it's Earth curve. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so like you could get up high enough that, you know, maybe it's not directly in your vision and it seems to be bending, but if it's not Earth curve from 1 foot off the ground, it's not Earth curve from 1 million miles away either.
Right. It makes no difference where you're viewing the horizon from or how you're viewing the horizon or your perception of the horizon bending. The horizon is not Earth curve. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Good morning, Adam. It's actually afternoon here, but...
Good afternoon, guys. Hope you had a nice day yesterday, Nathan.
It was lovely. Trampolining with sprogs. 10 of them. Axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Discord, anybody at all? Don't be shy. This is the claim that we spin. Earth is claimed to have an axial rotation value. 15 degrees an hour is the rotation value that we're supposed to be under. Has nobody got any evidence to claim this is true? Brian, can you pop yourself on local mute? I've unmuted you.
No.
Not that, Brian. Yeah, perfect.
They say we have Earth curve, we never see it. They say Earth spins, we never feel it. It's nonsense. It's back to grade school when we all said to the teacher, no, I don't think how could that be true? And then they shut us down with their indoctrination.
Did someone want to add something from Discord? Did I add something? Don't be shy.
The indoctrination is strong with this one.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
I sent a little video in Master B. Did anybody watch it?
Yes, I did, and it was annoying.
It was an advert that twisted true Christian values with scripture quoted and cited alongside heliocentric rhetoric. It was really in your face. It did make me chuckle. I knew it would annoy you guys, but I thought it'd be I shouldn't really confess to that, should I? I didn't send it to annoy you. I didn't send it intentionally to annoy you, just so that's clear.
No, it annoyed me when I first saw it last week, and I sent it to a few of my flat earth friends and said, see, this is what we're fighting, scientism in the church. So I've seen it already.
But they're directly intertwined, which is why I thought it would make an interesting discussion point. Because to me, there's no shock. But as a Christian that doesn't share the Catholic, Christian, Roman Catholic Church values, it's a very interesting talking point. Let's just shout out Jardu, then we'll get into it. Right, the sun is exactly double the distance as it is from half the distance from the observer.
Spot on. That's mathematically correct.
What? I was about to say, what the hell are you talking about? Glad maths expert Adam's
here. It's
here.
double half the distance.
Hold on, I'll just shout him thanks. Hold on. Jardu, I had no idea what that meant, and I wouldn't have understood it. Glad Adam's here. Thank you for the super chat. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, it's like 1 divided by 2 times 2 is 1, isn't it? That's what he's done there. So. Not wrong. It's just scalar.
Is this a clever maths joke that I don't understand because I'm clearly mathematically illiterate?
No, the sun is exactly double the distance as it is from half the distance from the observer.
Does anybody else follow this? Is it just
that's
Adam?
3 Arwinian units.
Yeah. The double.
It's like one of those. It's like one of those word things, the seashore, this and that, until you get confused. It's like looking at it from a different scalar, I think is what Adam's saying.
Double and half being the same if you... Okay. I kind of
scale,
follow.
Isn't it? There's no units there. It could be anything. That's why I said it's exactly 3 Arwinian units, which is double the distance from the observer halfway to the sun. So that would mean that the observers,
But it would also mean it's a physical distance, would it not?
In the middle.
Does that not give it an assignable, ascribable
double
distance?
the distance halfway to it. That's cute.
Yeah, but either way, that still infers that it's got an ascribable distance, doesn't it?
No, it's just double. Well, yes, because it's double half of it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But
Well, that's wrong.
It's not an actual value though. It's not working in units.
It doesn't matter.
It's working in.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the units you ascribe arbitrarily to it. If you gave it me in feet and put those into his scale, it still, without scale, ascribes the notion of an ascribable distance, doesn't it?
It's called physicality assumption bias. Yeah.
Right.
Well, hold on. It's got an apparent nature to the equation he gave.
Where's that? Hold on. The sun is exactly double the distance as it is from half the distance from the observer.
When it put in the observer.
I'll get lost, Jardu. He says, how long's a piece of string, Nathan? Yeah. No, you're missing the nuance of my criticism, aren't you, Jardu? I'm saying you're ascribing something physically to it in terms of an acquirable distance, regardless of your clever use of words, which at first I didn't understand, now I do. But I'm more concerned with the actual capability of ascribing a distance to it. With scaling values, you're saying you are. Adam initially agreed with me. I don't know if he still does.
I think I'm with you now. I've changed. It's not good anymore because it is, like I said, it's physicality assumption bias now. So it is assuming that there is a distance to it, which is exactly what the heliocentric model does with scaling, doesn't it? Again, it's
there's a distance.
No, just while, because he's paid for it. Not that I'm going to deny him what he got. You know, I am too slow when it comes to maths. So, you know, you did immediately catch me out with something that I didn't understand. I'm not going to deny it that you did catch me out. You did. You know, I didn't get it. I'm not going to lie. But once I did, which took a while, I'm not going to lie, I'm looking at the physical assumption bias. That was the term I was searching for. Arwin's not. Is he here? Well, I don't know why he hasn't piped up on
I've
this.
said it twice to try and trigger him, but
yeah, I just tried to.
He's obviously not here.
And Arwinian units. I thought that would get him up. I just assumed he wasn't here as he didn't say anything.
Well, let me attack that then.
Go ahead.
If we assume that if physical is outside of the mind, are you saying the sun exists within the mind?
He's not. He hasn't given enough information to deny a physical assumption bias in his super chat. But what you're now saying is, if we take that and expand it into perception or physicality,
In general, for anyone who doesn't think that there isn't like a sun there somewhere, like there is no distance, like just because we don't know it, that's crazy. Is that what you're saying, John? Because that's what I'm saying.
Well, no, what I'm saying is to say it's a physicality assumption bias, right? Is to assume that the way physical works is if it is existing outside the mind, then it's physical. Is the sun existing outside the mind?
yes.
Then it's not a physical assumption bias.
Why is it not a physical assumption bias if by shared experience only could you define it as only experienced in the mind? I don't follow how that does make it in a physical assumption bias. I'm now not following again.
What?
No, it doesn't.
No.
Well,
Hold on, let John go. Hold on, Adam.
Yeah.
I defined physical. I said existing outside the mind. If anyone else would like to define physical, we can discuss it. But first, we need to define what physical means to you.
Hold on. Just existing outside of the mind, other people's thoughts exist in their mind, but outside of my mind. But that doesn't mean if I describe them exclusive of my own experience, that makes that physical because I've described it outside of my experience in my mind.
The mind, Nathan, not my mind. The mind. Existing outside the mind.
What's the mind?
I was going to say that seems a bit unreasonable. How can you coalesce all of these? The mind can only be experienced by me. Or who's it? Descartes? I think, therefore I am. Well, that doesn't include you. No offence.
It's not so much.
Excuse me?
The physical assumption of it. It's apparent position that you're ascribing the physicality assumption bias to.
That's a much better way to put it.
Not physical. You're just saying the location.
Go on, Adam. Let me finish. That's exactly what I meant, Adam. Yes, please repeat that.
So it's not to say that its location is apparent. That's not to say it doesn't have one, it doesn't have a distance to, but the physicality assumption is that where we see it and the size we see it relates to its physicality and location.
Right. Now, let's say that I'm looking at it at a specific position, you're looking at it at a specific position, and we're in different positions. The fact that he added observer into his equation means it's an apparent equation as a scalar. So the position could be physical. It doesn't mean the sun's there.
Hold on, did you introduce a third party into that just then, John? Because if you did, that didn't tie in with his super chat. Shout out to Jad though again, great talking point, super chat. Number one, if you introduce a third party to it, then his logic doesn't stack up in terms of half versus double anymore. because it doesn't work that way in literal reality.
Yes, it does.
Hold
Because
on.
Hold on. I want to hear John
Arwin.
Arwin. Hold on, he's challenging what I'm saying. I want to hear him. Go ahead, John.
The third party is an observer, so it's going to be different for him.
That's what I just said, and you said no.
Yeah, that's,
I get the feeling that
what do you
my
Hold on,
want?
Arwin. Hold on. You'll get your chance, Arwin. I promise. Go on,
I
John.
didn't hear that. I was talking something else then. But yeah, for me, the sun would still be, I would see it in a position. Now, that position can be physical. It doesn't mean the sun is in that position.
The only way you can describe that position is
Doublespeak.
angular. So you can't ascribe a position.
Right. The angles observed are real. Those are not part of physicality assumption bias. It's the conclusion drawn from the angular correlations and the reification into an actual position in Euclidean space that is the physicality assumption bias.
Totally agree.
Okay, I'm tired of this.
Hold on, John. The only thing I disagree with was
defined physical. I have defined physical. Please define what physical means to you.
Being of substance.
being capable of, maybe I'm defining tangible, but capable of touch. That's not necessarily physical, is it? It's tangible.
Having a real position in physical space.
Hold on, he's already met that criteria well and truly. Hold on, the only thing I disagree with so far that John said more than anything else, which Arwin said was doublespeak, but I don't think it is, was that it doesn't preclude it, right, John, from being physical, which I would agree with. We don't know either way. So John's right, but you said that was doublespeak, so maybe I should address this to Arwin, because you said that was doublespeak. It doesn't mean it isn't physical. We don't know.
To draw a conclusion only on angular correlations.
Hold on, Eli, you're next. Go ahead, Arwin.
It's just that the drawing of conclusion based only on angular correlations into a physical object in specific location in space, that's just all assumption. That's part of the physicality assumption.
Again, I totally agree. Based on what we have, we haven't got enough to say it is. So no, it's totally deficient in that regard. Once you can, I'd just be repeating what you said in terms of the angles are real. You can take an angle, that's what you've got. You can write it down. It is what it is to that body in the sky if we're talking about the sun. But the assumption beyond that, you haven't got enough to base a physical assertion on of the sun being physical. But you can't rule it out either. You can't say it isn't, and that's kind of what John said when you claimed doublespeak. But he said no. Hold on, is that Eli? Go on, Eli. You're going to rumpus me regardless of whether I want you to or not. Go on.
Yeah. No. When you said, damn, it was something you just said, and I would have added on to that. I can't remember.
My last point was
that. The last bit of what you said?
Well, I was just saying that John's last statement, which Arwin claimed was doublespeak, was that you can't rule it out as physical. You can't say it isn't. And Arwin was saying, well, no, but you can't draw the conclusion that it is physical with the amount of information you have purely based on measuring angles to it from two different locations. Well, number one, you'd probably get different results if you tried to even ascribe a height to it. You might by chance stumble on the same maths and end up at the same height, but more likely than not, you'll end up with a different height. So how can you in any way use that information to extrapolate out a physical distance and therefore claim it's physical at all? You can't. That's Arwin's point. But John said that you couldn't not say it was physical. You can't rule it out.
I'd agree with that.
Because my problem with what you said is that we can't know if it is physical. I would end that with physically there. Because that seems more appropriate than to say that something that we experience, we don't know if it's like an actual thing or not. Like, it's a thing. We just don't know where it is, what it is. It could be a glare, it could be a reflection, it could be something totally different.
Well, with that sentiment in mind, another shout out to Jardo. Let's just bring up his super chat on screen so you can see it in the audience. He says, as he tries to bring the chat up at the same time, my 1/1/1 presupposition cannot be disputed in any of the literal, physical, or non-physical, full stop. It is what it is. Beautifully said, I don't know. You're on fine form. Thanks for the super chat. Any more on the sun?
Yeah, just to back it
It's over there.
both. Well, the statement from Arwen and what we use is it's a physicality assumption bias. It's not to say it's not physical. It's just to say whenever we view this, we apply a physicality bias, even though it's not provable or disprovable. We should consider both, but in most cases, we always assume physicality bias.
Correct.
Well, I would like to add on just one thing, just real quick. Where in his equation he gave did he give physical?
I'll just
It
read it
says
again.
the word-
Well, you
When
can
it
figure this
says
out
the
for yourselves.
exactly.
You can figure it out for yourselves. I'll read it again. The sun is exactly double the distance as it is from half the distance from the observer.
So that means
The
there is
word
a distance.
exactly.
No, the word distance.
No, neither one of them necessarily ascribe physicality because he uses
Wait.
the word observer.
Hold on, Eli. Just let me get to the
Okay,
end.
so let's establish. Okay.
Go on, John.
None of those words necessarily mean it's physical. He's just saying the distance to it from this observer, right, to the position where it appears is this equation. But the equation in itself is just a scalar. It doesn't mean it's there.
It is scalar, but in stating that there is a distance, even as undefined, but that half of that distance, yeah, is if you double it, it's equal to the same thing. It's implying there is an actual distance. So even though the distance is unknown, yeah, there is an actual distance that applies to in the mechanics there.
It seems to me that you all are ascribing that and then applying it to the equation, but
No, that's why I'm saying.
No, that's the implication of his scaling. That's the implication that it's got a physical distance ascribable because of his scaling that he's saying he can measure. That's the implication, not our extrapolation.
Well, see, the thing is to that observer, that's what distance it appears to be to him. And it doesn't matter which observer looks at it, that's going to be the equation that works for them. But that doesn't mean that equation, it's just a language trick.
There's only one observer in the equation. The sun is exactly double the distance as it is from half the distance from the observer. Yeah? So the sun is exactly double the distance from the observer to the sun as it is from half the distance from the observer to the sun.
Gardo asks, does that mean I get 3 Bitcoin? Lol. No, no, it doesn't.
No, he owes us 3 after this.
It's only worth about a $5 now anyway.
Yeah, but distance is a concept, right? That's something.
No.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Measurement.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the concept of distance. Yeah.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
you can apply
Like, that's
it. You have to
you're-
apply it in units. You have to apply
Okay,
it
but
in units.
no, something physically has the distance when you measure it. What are you talking about?
When you apply units, right?
No, when you figure out when you figure out how exactly you're gonna like what unit of measure you're gonna use to determine what the distance is between you and a thing. You know it's a distance. You're just trying to figure out, okay, what language am I gonna use to describe this distance? There is a distance.
What? To the
There
sun?
is no, Ari, no.
You're right,
It's
Eli. There is a
space
distance.
conception.
It's what conceptualization we're going to describe that distance in.
Is space a conceptualization?
Hold on, I think
What
I
does
follow
that
what
have
John's
to-
trying to say
that's
here.
a
Hold on. Let me
non-sequitur.
just see if I can pick it up
a
what
fake
John's putting
medium.
down. What I think John's trying to put down is that until the point that we exercise his clever linguistics, there is no reification and there is no mathematics and there is no measurement. Therefore, there's no physical assumption bias. It's only upon us discussing it and employing his scalar do we reify it, and therefore we put the physical assumption bias into it. I think that's what John's putting down. If I'm wrong, just tell me.
Well, as soon as somebody
just the
makes a
language.
That would
claim
be
about
John.
an actual
That would
position,
be John. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just a language trick. It's a trick of language, and until we ascribe those meanings to it, it doesn't mean that.
well, since I literally brought up the word physicality assumption bias originally, I'd like to make sure that the details of it are always cleared up, because it is a process in the mind, right? It's not as soon as your mind just says, look, because the angles line up over the terrain somehow visually, I am just going to draw the conclusion and reify that it is a position. Now, it doesn't have to spell that all out. They just say, oh, look, the angle lines up, so it is there, right?
Yeah,
as
yeah.
soon as they do that, physicality assumption bias has gotten the better of them, and they probably don't even realize it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Other than get the better of them, I think what John's trying to say is this magic trick, which I'm sure now that he's mentioned it, I'll see it popping up all over the place, is a sort of, what's the term, where you leave as the magic trick user, the one who's actually using this linguistic magic trick, no real guilt once the person falls for the trick. It's up to the person that's having the trick foisted upon them to actually take the steps of reification, which in some ways you could say absolves the person who's instilled the magic trick of any guilt. Oh, well, I didn't tell you to reify this into a physical distance. You did that of your own volition. I am not guilty of that. Now that the penny's dropped, I am picking up what you're putting down, am I not, John?
I need clarity then, John. So with what Nathan's just said, it's not a physical distance. So what sort of distance is it? Is there a way in which you can write distance to give it a neutrality of non-implication? Or does it just by its own volition have that inherent meaning?
No. You're focused too much on the question.
distance.
Let me just answer for John. I'm sorry, I'm rumpusing John when your question was to him, Adam. No. There's a subtle nuance. Forget about the equation. What I think John's trying to say is that until we do something here, Adam, right? The question that was put out in the super chat by Jardu doesn't involve Jardu doing anything in terms of ascribing or acquiring a physical distance to anything ever. We have to take those steps, don't we? Therefore, we have to reify it and then argue that he's made us reify it. Oh, what a bastard. He's talking about ascribable distances is how I started this off. Now, maybe he didn't intend to do this, but intentionally or unintentionally, he's highlighted a certain part of the magic trick when it comes to the deception of heliocentrism, which is it relies on the victim, let's say us in this example, to do the step of reification for themselves. In this case, physical assumption bias of a distance to the sun. Now, this links back to the directly and overtly ascribing distances when quoting Jesus and the Bible in the advert I posted to the guys in the Master B chat, just for a discussion point. But in this instance, it's very different. It relies upon you taking the step yourself to make the reification into a reality that you experience in your mind's eye. But the person who's voiced that upon you has no guilt. Yeah? So Jardu hasn't made you do that. Now you're going through the steps of what you are doing in terms of how it's unfair that he's made you do it, to reify it, to give it a physical distance. He hasn't made you do that. Maybe I'm reading too much into what John said, but John, can you just, if I'm wrong or off or not summarising your point correctly, hopefully we'll get a response from John.
That's pretty close to what I was thinking. Yeah, like the concept. There's a concept of distance, and then there's when you apply distance in reality. There's our conception of things, and then there's their physical nature.
No.
Well, it's a trick that he's playing with the conception of something and using the scalar with it.
I see it as a claim on his part. Just a solid claim to me.
I do too. I mean, you can't. How you gonna say? Use words like the, is, exactly, distance, and say not me, you doing it. Like I don't.
All right. Okay. How about this? The sun.
It's a solid claim to me on their behalf. It's not. I'm not ascribing distance. He's stating there is a distance, right? It's not stating what it is, but he is stating it's physical. Yeah, that's tongue-in-cheek the way he describes the distance afterwards. Yeah, but he's still making a claim that the sun is a particular distance.
Right.
Yeah.
So he technically sneaked in a
His first-
presupposition.
Yeah, it's his first sentence. The sun is exactly double the distance. So it's making a statement, yeah, of a claim to me there. There is no foisting this for me to interpret. What I've got to interpret is, could I apply the scalar part of the sentence, which is, as it is half the distance from the observer? Am I prepared to reify that into something to try and make this actually have any real meaning, some inference to it? But the first part of the sentence is a claim to me. It's not anything I need to interpret.
Well, hold on, because we use words like the distance, is what Elijah said. I'll get to you, Adam. But the and distance, okay, how is that any different than saying the sun? Like, well, is the sun physical now? Or
No.
Distance
No.
already invokes physicality.
The distance from me to Arwen is exactly half of the distance from me to halfway to Arwen or to Nathan. It's describing a distance. It's describing something physical, unless, and the way out of it is, as you did, to claim that distance is conceptual. That's the only way forward. But that, to me, a little bit naughty, because
Yeah.
in any
is.
generic understanding, when we're describing distance, we are describing physicality between two physical things.
Right.
Until
So
the
he
moment
tricked,
that you
he
apply a
tricked
system,
invoked-
One
Sorry,
at a
can I
time.
say
until
Hold
the
on.
moment
Just
you
go ahead, John. And everyone else mute just while John's talking. Thanks.
until the moment you apply a physical a unit to that distance, you've not done anything. You're talking about a conceptual idea of distance. You're not applied it real world.
No, as soon as you invoke the word distance, you invoke position. Doesn't matter, you are not adding a numerical value to it.
Well, a line, okay? A line has distance, does it not?
Yeah, a physical line.
Well, a line is just a geometric
But you said
concept.
Okay, a line's a geometric concept, but distance isn't.
A line's a physical thing.
It could be.
We'll draw it on a piece of paper, it is.
Right.
So the distance
piece
of a
of paper
line
that
in
makes it
mathematics. Hold on. The distance of a line in mathematics, not drawn on a sheet of paper.
No, not
Is
in
that
mathematics.
physical?
Then it's not real. It's in mathematics.
Well, as far as I can tell, his claim has never stepped outside the realm of mathematics yet, because he's not ascribed it to anything physical. And y'all are
But
saying
hold
Yeah, but
on,
he
hold on, hold
tricked
on, hold
it.
on.
He
So
tricked
back to the
invoked the
original
word.
question then. So what's the sun then? We don't know, so we can't rule it either way. You know, you've already disclaimed that right early on, John. You can't rule it out, but you can't say it is based on what we've got so far. One of the things is ascribable distance. That's what he's asserting. Therefore, I'm going to go with my original objection, which is basically what Adam said 3 minutes ago. No, he's definitely ascribing something to something we see in our day-to-day lives with a measurement that to be made in physicality, i.e. the measurement's going to be made in physicality. But whether or not it actually gives you the distance, well, definitely not. That's not enough. Doesn't mean it hasn't got one or it's not physical either. But he has incorporated that when he talks about the sun with a physical measurement being made to it. Because it's a physical measurement he's talking about to the sun, isn't he? Half the distance versus double.
No, he's
Yes.
talking about it's not a physical measurement he's talking about. Where in his super chat did he say take a physical measurement to the sun?
Doesn't have to say the word physical. He just invoked it by, oh, look, half the distance. If you double that, you have the distance. And then basically not making it involved anymore. That's a trick invocation. He invoked the distance, but not in a relevant way. So it was just a trick.
Doesn't need to trick anybody. The words in English.
Yeah, it would trick anybody, but
if you're gonna take it into mathematics, then he would have had to make the statement to the obvious to go against it and say this is within mathematics. But if you read the English, then unless you're going to ascribe different meanings to the word distance, to what it means to everybody, and the sun, when you're talking about it in this sentence, the English is quite clear. There's no trickery. It's a statement of fact that the distance between me and my microphone is exactly double what it is between me and halfway to my microphone. Okay.
Well, this is one of the problems with ambiguity of language.
It's not ambiguous. That's what I'm saying. It's very clear. To make it ambiguous, you've got to put the other words in to allow it out of just reality. This is a physical reality statement, and there's nothing in there to say mathematically it's this, or you could calculate it like this. It's just a straight statement of fact between two things: the sun and the observer, me and my microphone.
The only other thing that's happening.
Well done, Eli. Once you've got your mic open, no one else is basically allowed to talk. So go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam. I thought you know.
No, done, bro. Off you go, mate.
I want to say something.
No, Eli.
No, Eli.
Well, yeah. I just think that this is the problem with interpretation, where there doesn't need to be. So because there's not enough information, you're going to go ahead and insert information. Like, no, the dude said distance. The dude said it is. That's it. Like, that's what he said. I'm like, okay. Like, the only problem is the needling of the words that you guys are doing. And with words
so when
that
I point
aren't
at the sky and say that is the sun, that's a physical claim, right?
No, until you ascribe a physical measurement that you can acquire, regardless if it has scales or values or arbitrary numbers attached to it. But if you just say there's the sun, that's not saying here's the sun and here's how we get its distance. It's half the distance. Yeah, that's not what you're doing.
Look, there is a definite word trick going in on it. I ain't saying there's not, because it's mathematics. Like it's like the value of 1 divided by 1 gives you 1, right? That's all it is.
Yeah, but that's mathematically conceptual. When you're talking about a distance and then half a distance or double a distance, you're literally invoking the claim of a distance, which is in physicality invocation.
How do you think of distance? Do you think of distance as something you travel or something you conceptualize orthographically?
No, so you measure with the tape measure.
Distance is distance.
Right. And if you don't want to invoke that, you have to say apparent distance. We've been training on this for like 3 years now here at the FED. So there is no distance to the sun. That's why you shouldn't invoke it.
There either is a distance or an apparent distance based on known measurements. There's nothing outside of that.
Yeah, but no distance.
Unless you're talking about the distance is the distance between me loving you and not loving you, which is a totally different thing. We're not talking about that.
The whole point is there is no distance measurement. There's only angular measurement. That's the whole point.
You said apparent distance. How did you use that word when Adam just said that distance
the way that
physical?
Listen,
so you're saying an oxymoron?
No.
Yeah, you are.
When something is apparently a size or a distance, the only way to properly state that is if you have some other value.
The observer. I brought that up.
Not observer. Yes. Because if you have an apparent size, it's because if you have an apparent size, if you're using the word correctly, it's because you already have something physical known.
Are you saying that or not?
No. I'm saying that when Glovers use apparent, they're making shit up because they have no distance or size or any kind of anything physical when they're talking about things in the sky. When I'm talking about apparent and I'm saying this pole is apparently this size, it's because I already know the distance, or this distance is because I know the size.
I think you're
So
getting
it's
confused
not
now.
apparent?
Apparent size is angular size. They're the same thing, right? So if you say this has an apparent size of X, well, it means that you can say how many radians it's got or whatever. You've got an angular size. That's apparent size. What you're saying is, if I look at something and say it's got an apparent, in quotes, size, you're saying, well, if I look at a sticker of a sun that's on the other end of a stadium and I'm on the ground on the football field looking up at it, you're saying, well, I can say roughly how far it is because I've got rough variables to be able to calculate it. That's a calculable roughly distance to something, but that's not its angular size or apparent distance. It's neither, because the apparent size would be its angular size. That would be if you got out something to be able to physically measure the angle that you have to it, then you can measure that. Doesn't mean you know its distance, because you don't know how big the sticker is at that particular point. But if you've got other reference points along the ground to it, you can calculate it. You can back calculate how physically big that sticker is that you're looking at. Now, when you compare that sticker of a sun at the other end of a stadium, and just discount Eli's use of the word apparent in that regard, you compare that to the sun, where you can perform the exact back calculations or calculations to it. But they don't work. You change your distance, you change your angle, technically that should change its height, and it doesn't. If you move up in altitude and measure the angle, it should change the angle, and it doesn't. So none of the things that we ascribe in physical measurement terms apply to the sun when you try and back calculate it into its height to get a physical position. They never work out correctly. Doesn't mean that you can't utilise the angles to it to back calculate where it is above with great accuracy. You can. You can get a 2-for-1 out of the angle for the baseline distance, but that's it. You can't use the hypotenuse to calculate the height, because it alters when you alter the angle. Therefore, any of the typically ascribable distance assertions, which when that super chat came in from Jardot, would be assumed by anybody who John is saying, well, that's just a verbal trick that you then have to fall for. Well, no, but in general terms, any reasonable common man would have that assumption when talking about measuring the distance to anything ever. But in the sun's case, it doesn't apply. So it's the exception to the rule where the trick comes in. So you can still call it a trick. We both get to win here, because it is, but only in respect to the sun, as opposed to anything else that you could measure ever on the ground that you could just literally take a walk over to it with a tape measure in your hand and measure if you were right or not.
I'm not going to argue it any further, but there was the word apparent distant used, like that grouping of words. Now,
Fair enough. Hopefully this has been the most value anybody's ever got out of a super chat ever.
I was going to say that was for
That's a
such
great
an
conversation.
innocuous comment. It's
I was only making a joke, says Jardot.
Yeah.
He didn't, but I'm speaking for him.
Those are the best jokes. Those are the jokes that make us think and that test our resolve.
Apparently.
Was my conclusion okay? When we're talking about measuring anything ever, we can just take a stroll over to it and confirm our measurements were correct. When we back engineered maybe the distance based on a few of the variables that we already had, well, we can feel very smart when we verify it. How do we verify it with the sun? We don't. Not only don't we do that, it doesn't work out correctly when we do the same thing from different distances, because you get different angles and therefore different heights. No, we just don't know. It just doesn't work out with those mathematics. Which means the sun, forbid me for being a little bit goosebumpy when I say this, is absolutely astonishing. It's the most amazing thing ever. Yeah, our sky is truly beautiful, in not only in what it looks like, but what it does. It's amazing, and we haven't got the vaguest clue why that is. We can use aspects of it to great effect, very useful. But what it is and why it does it is beyond all of us. Now that makes
It's
me
God's
very happy.
handiwork.
You can call it God's handiwork if you will. I am just truly overwhelmed when I try and comprehend why it does what it does. It's amazing. And again, as a flat earther, I can look at it without any preconceived notions about what it must be in order to do that, and just go, wow, that's cool. I'd love to know why it does that. I don't, And any of the current explanations that have been offered me definitely don't explain it in any consistent way that I would accept, because they've got flaws, and they shouldn't have if they're explaining it in any reasonable way. And they're not. So therefore, what are you left with? Well, a childlike wonder about what it is. That's about it. And a reasonable comprehension of how amazing it is to do what it does. But that's it.
I think that's why they're jealous of us, actually, because we do have that childlike wonderment of the sky, and they don't. They're held to what they were told.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I do pity them in that regard. I think John also does. He's got too much empathy, if anything. But yeah, it's sad. It's sad that, you know, a lot of the potential for being inquisitive is robbed from you as a child. And certain aspects of the world, it's back to the Truman Show example when he sat in his school class asking about exploring. Well, that's a kind of childlike wonderment and inquisitive nature that's drilled out of him when she pulls down the map and tells him everything's already been found. Nothing for you to do. Oh, right, well, I'll get about my day filling this soda can machine or whatever it is that Truman does, sell insurance. Yeah? Well, that's great if you need the world to keep going and people to keep buying insurance. Not so great if the person actually had or may have gone on to fulfill some desire in terms of exploration. That's robbed from us all.
That's why you have guys like Jem Panda out on a day when people are trying to spread truth, screaming in pain.
It's because it's the biggest part of the deception. Most people don't want to admit that they've been fooled. And in terms of what else am I offering? Childlike wonderment? Well, that's not very good. Well, the people who are in charge think it's extremely important, to the point where they've locked down the notion of exploration of the sky, to the point where they give you constant narratives about what it is and isn't, in the form of NASA. Well, that's an expensive endeavour, so it's obviously important to give the general public some sort of idea about what the sky could be, with a rhetoric that says it is this.
And they've been doing that through all of recorded history, because every religion has always pointed up and told people what's going on. You know, that's kind of their MO, and that's how they control the people under their rule.
But I think the Bible's the only one that says do not worship these things. I could be wrong.
These things that they're telling you what they are.
Yeah, the lights in the sky.
Yeah, you're wrong, Neil.
Well, it's just like don't regard them as God, the creator themselves, because they are so mystifying, right? And that mystery leads you to think like, wow, it's so complicated, it must be God. That is something that might happen. I think it's pointing at that.
No, there's people worshiping the sun and the moon.
Yes.
Adam, what other religions say not to worship the lights in the sky? Just for my benefit.
Hold on. He disagreed with you in terms of your misapprehension that the Bible isn't suggesting that you worship something that's sky-worthy in its description. Your misapprehensions haven't been corrected yet. You've just moved on to asking which other religions affirm your misapprehension that
What did I
your religion
miss?
isn't pointing
I'm
to the
sorry.
sky. It is.
Where does the Bible say that you should worship the sky? I missed that.
The Bible doesn't say. It says do not worship these
what's God
things.
got his feet up on? According to the Bible, what's God got his feet up on exactly?
Footstool, earth.
What's that? Oh, really?
The sky.
Oh, really? That's fascinating. Sorry, what were you asking again, John?
Are you worshiping a footstool?
I don't know. Does that sky that is a footstool got God's feet up on it?
No, the Bible says don't worship creation, but the Creator.
The guy with his feet up on the sky.
No, but I'm specifically talking about in Scripture where it says do not worship the lights in the sky. Let me find it. Or
It's
Paul
the lights
knows
in the
where it
sky
is.
with God's feet on them.
Yeah, you can worship God, but not the
Nathan,
lights.
Nathan, God
Who's got his feet on the sky? No one's picking this up yet. No one's saying yes. But I haven't heard a single
Yeah,
affirmation yet of what I'm saying.
I
God
did
is-
say yes.
Forget it.
So are we clear now that they're all pointing to the sky then in some form or another and telling you what it is and isn't? Meanwhile, just to take it away from Christianity, because this is obviously a bit of a salty wound I'm opening here, Meanwhile, what Neil said earlier about them having a very specific worship of the sun, yeah, that's what the heliocentric religion, make no mistake, it is a religion, people who are watching and don't think it is. Yeah, it is. A sun-worshipping, sun-centric religion. It's in the title. Heliocentric, sun-centric. That's what this religion that you, on a ball Earth, worshipping the sun with Earth tilting towards it, are doing. You're in a sun-centric religion. Shout out again to Jardo, who's given me 4 super chats so far. You all failed. I win. The sun could be anywhere, but my equation will always work, says Jardo. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Damn him.
Yeah, damn him for giving me money. I mean, thank you for the super chat. Are we going to move on from this? We're going to dwell? Any more religious discussions?
Hey everyone, hey Nathan.
Hey Brian.
I posted something in Master Beef that QE posted there the other day. He just asked if I would present it or if you would present it. It's just a point about elevation angles.
Did you want me to post the script?
Yeah, if you just present the script and maybe read it out, what he's saying in it.
Left lane, the wrong lane. Elevation angle is the angle above a point, end quote, ... Wrong, exclamation mark. Elevation angle, in quotes, is the angle between the, quote, horizontal plane and the line of sight, end quote, measured in the vertical plane, sorry, end quote. And then he's got a link. Did you want me to read the other one?
Yes, he wanted the point to be laboured, that it wasn't what left lane, who was a baller, was saying.
No, it's fine. It's on screen. If people want to read the other comment, I would be. I've just scanned read it. Yes, I'll be labouring the point. Go ahead, Brian.
No, just that's it. He just wanted to make the point that he said it was important that because left lane was saying that it's just above a point. It's kind of vague. It's specific in the definition. I mean, I'm not doing it justice because he was more passionate about this point than I was. I'm not doing it justice like him. But he was just basically pointing out where left lane was wrong to just say it's elevation above a point. I don't really know what left lane means by that. But that's why he gave the 2 definitions. Where
He's trying to invoke a tangent. He's trying to invoke a tangent point of the
He's trying to disassociate the relevance of the elevation angle to the surface that you're going to navigate upon. He's trying to separate the two so that you can have a point with a tangent plane that you can disassociate from the surface. But that's not what celestial navigation's about.
Yeah, that's true. That makes a bit of sense. Because I was trying to think of it logically, and all I could come up with was, well, it's elevation above, if you're talking about a celestial body, above its GP point. That puts the GP point in the horizontal, in a horizontal line with the horizon. But that's not what he was talking about. That's not what left lane's talking about, obviously. Because that would be completely debunking the globe. You know what I mean, within his statement. So it must be above a tangent point.
What's GP?
Begging the question.
What's GP?
Geographical position.
Oh, no, it can't be what he's talking about. They're not talking about the ground.
No, he must be talking about it. Because I actually, would you believe, just till Adam and John said there, I never even thought of it. Yeah, he's talking about a tangent point. Because they always have to keep on avoiding reality, don't they? They're always begging the question secretly these days. They never say it. They're always secretly begging the question. So that must be what he's talking about, above a tangent point. What's a tangent point? It's a tangent to something, isn't it? What's a tangent to? You know, a geometric horizon, whatever, you know.
When you're done, can I read something, Nathan?
Did my speakers just go out?
May I read something?
No, everyone was just in shock because Neil just didn't read it, just come in and say it. He asked. Go on, then, dude.
I asked for
Freaked us
permission
all out.
first.
Go on, dude.
Okay. It says in Deuteronomy 4:19, I'm reading from the ASV, and lest thou lift up thine eyes unto the heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, thou be drawn away and worship them and serve them, which Jehovah thy God has allotted unto all the people under the whole heaven. And when your eyes are lifted up to heaven and you see the sun, oh, it's the same thing with a different translation. So there you have it. And am I coming in?
Yeah, just put it on screen, people. So, unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. Shouldest be driven to worship them. Interesting. I'm not sure what that's saying, Neil.
It's telling you not to, lest thou. In other words, don't.
You had to go a little bit.
My God has divided unto all nations under whole heaven.
Okay.
Another translation says, don't be seduced. And when you look up into the sky and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the forces of heaven, don't be seduced into worshiping them. Come on, we know people worship the sun. We know they worship the moon. It's not an uncommon thing.
Well, I know that the... Sorry. I was just going to say, I know that the Celts and the ancient Japanese, they were sometimes called as sun worshippers, but they weren't worshipping the sun. They saw the sun as the biggest representation of God.
Exactly.
So that's why.
That's the same for the Jews. So if you look at really old, I think it's the Akuk synagogues, a lot of the old stuff will have the zodiac in, and Sol Invicta, a kind of chariot riding, looks a bit like Jesus on a chariot in the center with the sun. But even in Judaic there, it's you can't deny the sun. God created it, its power it brings and what it brings. But from my understanding, there's no worship of the sun. They're not deifying the thing itself. It is just the ultimate representation of the power, the love, and the life that God brings.
Now, God's talking about bringing sacrifices to it. Like I look at the sun and I marvel. I'm like, wow, God is awesome.
Yeah, but
I don't think that's worshiping the sun.
That's why, yeah. So when you see pictures of that, people would, is there sun worship going off there? No, but there's still recognition of its symbolic nature of God's power. So the same with Christianity and Islam as well. And I said same. I think if you look at like Akhenaten and Egyptian stuff, it's not God himself, but a recognition of the power of God, the ultimate.
Yeah, but what about when they bring the feast of the harvest and they put it and they offer it up to the sun? Then that's worshiping the sun.
I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Neil, but
Are you sure you're not thinking of the Wicker Man?
Whatever religion it is.
well,
You're bringing offerings to worship to the sun.
Interpretation will always try and paganize it, won't it, into idolatry. But maybe, I think, let's say if you probably look and ask those individuals, they might not be making that a particular god per se. That's not to say if you look at Greco-Roman stuff. Yeah. So in this case, you've got the gods are signified in the stars. And again, I don't think they're there to worship. As I remember, it's like when Caesar isn't a god until he dies, and if he was a just Caesar and ruled well, he would then be given a star in the skies to be remembered by. They are then deified in their way, but they're little g gods, aren't they? They still sit under. But I don't, with maybe the exception of the wandering planets, the main Jupiter, Mars, etc. I don't think there's worship even by the Greco-Romans, just recognition.
And with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!